one of the key items we looked at in terms of weaknesses in internal control systems is the issue of fraud. So if the internal control systems are not working efficiently, trust me, fraud is easy to occur. Even when they are working, even when the internal control systems are working, people still find their way around to manipulate the system and defraud the system. So fraud risk, we can never do away with it. It exists in this part of our world, let me say, in the world. And what I've always said is that wherever human beings are, fraud is there. Fraud is not perpetrated by animals, excuse my language, neither are they perpetrated by fishes or some trees or some non-living organisms. Fraud is perpetrated by living human beings. So I've always said from my practice as a fraud examiner in industry, I've seen that wherever human beings are, fraud exists. What is fraud? We'll look at fraud, okay? Categories of fraud. The fraud triangle, we'll look at some indicators of fraud and how we can detect and prevent fraud. Trust me, it cannot be fully done 100%, but to some extent, we can prevent it, okay? And then we'll look briefly at the concept of money laundering, all right? Fraud is simply depriving someone by deceit. Sometimes we use our offices to abuse power. It is fraudulent, okay? So any false representation of facts which are made with the intention of duping somebody and with the knowledge of its falsity, I know this is false, yet I go on. Or I do it without belief in its truth, or I recklessly undertake it carelessly, whether it is true or false, I don't care. And like I said, we mostly use our positions of trust to do this. There are some categories of fraud, basically two, all right? So we have the instance where we remove funds or assets from a business. So the outright theft of cash or assets, or you could some people take up the activity of overstating claims or manipulating bank reconciliations and cash books to conceal fraud, okay, to conceal theft, to steal someone's resources. Also, the second category is where we misrepresent the financial position of the business, all right? So where we intentionally, sometimes some people will say it is unintentional, but where we tend to omit or misrecord the company's financial records. But usually it is intentional, okay? Most frauds, all fraud activities are intentional. I don't think you wake up in the morning and you say, I accidentally caused this fraud. They are usually intentional. So the common frauds, removal of funds or assets. Like I said, examples could be stealing cash, stealing inventory, payroll fraud, in putting someone on payroll when you know the person is not supposed to be there. Someone has left the organization, you are not taking the person off payroll, okay, and diverting the funds into your account. Teaming and lading, all right, fictitious customers, collusion with real customers, okay, and then some bogus supply of goods or services, maybe from suppliers when you know nothing has come in, but you still record that a supplier has worked for the organization. Payment for goods you've not received, okay, from suppliers, from non-existing suppliers. And also we could manipulate the cash and bank reconciliations just to be able to make some good money. Let's take some example of collusion examples, okay? So despite the presence on site of less than 3 qualified chartered accountants, okay, a collusion could still occur, okay? It could still occur between a salesman, some salesmen collude and still work it out, okay? A data entry clerk would work with someone, a customer, and an in-person, someone within the organization could collude, okay? Paperwork could be raised to release order of wine or spirits, product inventory, delivered to customer who paid salesman in cash at a discount. So I pick it out, just release this order, I go, and then instead of being invoiced, I pay cash at a discount, as a heavily discounted amount, so that we can share the benefits, okay? So it happens. Fraud happens even when we have chartered accountants on site. So the fact that we have accountants or auditors doesn't mean fraud will not occur. And all traces could be wiped from the system. All traces could be wiped, and then we share the income. At the end of the day, we lose stock. We don't get money for the stock we have, and this could lead to some criminal proceedings. take a good look at this extreme example of payroll fraud using this site. Okay, you get some beautiful example there, and I will entreat all of us to take a look at it. Another one, second leg of common frauds, misrepresentation of the financial position. So we overvalue inventory, some bad debt policy, we just try to increase it fictitiously. At the end of the day, we go into collude with the debtor to collect what we've put on file that, hey, you know, your amount was supposed to be 10,000. I have advised management that you cannot pay, you are bankrupt, you are challenging, you have challenges with finance, your liquidity situation. So we've written off 50%. So, you know, just give me something and that's it. So we share when you know the person can actually pay. Fictitious sales, understating expenses, okay. Even overstating expenses could also be one. Why you overstate, you know, you did not take a meal or a lunch of 200 pounds, but you put in 200 pounds when you know you took a lunch of just 20 pounds. Okay, manipulating depreciation. Okay, so these are all examples of common frauds which we could find on the financial position. All right, there's a fraud triangle. Normally, it says, what are the three things that will cause fraud to occur? So the fraud triangle looks at the three things, three major driving factors of fraud. So we have them three. We have opportunity. When internal control is not working, there's an opportunity to commit fraud. Even when they are working, but no one is checking, there's an opportunity to commit fraud. So I'm the same person who prepares the cash book. I'm the same person who signs the checks. I'm the same person who goes for bank statement to prepare bank reconciliations. Can you imagine one person doing about 5 different jobs? No properly segregated segregation of duties. So it will happen that this person can commit fraud. Even when the system is working, we say, well, there is the pandemic, we don't have staff, people are not around to work, so let's allow one person to do everything, 3 people's works. That is an opportunity to commit fraud. There could also be attitude, it's attitudinal issues, rationalizing. Everyone is doing it, so if I do it, there's nothing wrong. Okay, so I deserve more. I'm the chartered accountant. I have an ACCA. My colleagues in other places are taking 70,000, and I'm here taking 40,000 or 30,000 annually. No, I deserve more than I need. So you rationalize. You have an attitude to rationalize that this is my legitimate right, and I need to get it. It is not. It is one of the factors that will drive. Okay, so attitudinal issues, rationalizing it is also one item which causes fraud. Okay, which drives fraud. And then incentive. There's pressure. So you end up promising your fiancé or your wife that I'm going to buy you a diamond ring. You don't have the money. You know your income does not afford a diamond ring. There's a pressure to do it. Sometimes on bad lifestyles, you go out clubbing, drinking, chilling with friends, spending money. So there's pressure on you to always have cash to be able to meet your targets. Maybe you know you've gone in for a very expensive mortgage. You know you cannot pay. There's pressure on you to pay this mortgage every month. Otherwise, your property could be seized. So these are areas where you need, you could examine. Otherwise, you know that if I don't explore other avenues to get money, to pay my mortgage, I could lose. So these are the 3 main driving forces of fraud. So incentives, any pressure on the employee, okay. Opportunities, weak controls within the systems, yes. And then attitude, rationalizing that I need this. So these are the 3 items we normally plug into the fraud triangle. There are some prerequisites for fraud. So individuals, so we've just explained. So they could have high incentive to commit fraud, okay. If they are predisposed to dishonesty, if the rewards are high, I may be motivated to go for it if the opportunity is presented. Okay, so these are the other aspects. There's also little chance of detection. Controls are weak. Sanctions are insignificant. I defraud and you get me, and you just give me some 1 month off without pay. When I know that what I have defrauded, what I've stolen from the company is worth 2 years of pay. Okay, it will cause me to move on to commit more fraud. Okay. Take example at the Lloyds Bank worker, Jessica Harper. Okay, this staff was jailed for 2.4 million fraud. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. So that information, you find it on the BBC News, 21st August 2012. So Harper told her third investigating officer she deserved her money because she was rising at 5:30 a.m. and returning home at 8 p.m. Where will you plug this? She's rationalizing it. I deserve it. I'm working more than I deserve, so I need it. She also said, I saw the opportunity and thought, given the hours I work, I deserve it. So she also thought there's some weaknesses in the system and she was able to go away with this huge sum of money. And she said, if I went to work for another company, I would probably be earning 4 times as much, justifying it, rationalizing it. So there were weak internal controls that caused her to defraud. But again, she was having this justification, rationalizing it, I deserve it. Okay, it's quite unfortunate when people defraud and they give examples, they give justifications. You're justifying your sin, right? It is sad. Retail fraud, okay, the retail environment provides conditions which lend themselves easily to fraud and theft. So some staff, often trusted with cash, could easily get rid of it. So an easily marketable stock at remote locations. So you are trusted with cash, they go out, they sell, they pocket some, they can come back and report. I remember when I will not mention the company's name, but what is a brewery company, okay, it's a soft drinks company. When these guys, they are supposed to deliver the goods to the customers, and once they go, what they do is that they arrange, sell it at a very low price, and when they are coming, they crash the car. They run the car into a ditch and tell them we broke all the drinks, so we've lost it. You go in and check, and they are empty bottles which were broken. So this is what happens. They go, they exchange the real beverages with the customer, take empty bottles, and once on their way coming, they run the car into a ditch and destroy property, company assets, and at the same time cause the company to lose inventory and cash. Okay, morale and pay can be very low. Okay, so if morale and pay is low for these retail guys, they could always defraud. Small discrepancies are often ignored or put down to shoplifting. So that's why we find audit coming in. Audit is not foolproof. Audit is not absolute assurance. Audit deals with materiality thresholds. So if the amount is small, they write it off. Okay, so audit is not fraud examination. Auditing is not fraud examination, but we expect internal audit to take up many of these. Many large employers, retail companies will employ internal auditors to monitor this, like I said, but they are not foolproof. They are not fraud examiners. Indicators of fraud. Let's look at one key area in terms of personnel. So they normally are split into two. So personnel, we have secretive behavior, expensive lifestyle. This person is driving a Lamborghini when you know his 10-year salary cannot buy a Lamborghini. Meanwhile, he's not inherited any property from a great-grandfather or an ancestor. So it's a typical indicator. Long working hours, the person doesn't want to go on vacations, take care of this person. Yes, unwilling to take holidays. He comes early, closes late. Autocratic management style, doesn't want anyone to question him. Lack of segregation of duties, unwillingness to delegate. I want to do everything on my own. I don't want to share. I don't want to be a team player. Low staff morale. This guy is always moody. Be careful. They may be up to something. Okay, second one has to do with computer fraud. People could hack into our system and defraud us. There's a business email compromise system, which is ongoing currently. So people could hack into our system, get the email addresses of our clients, and then tell them this is XYZ Limited. We know you owe us this amount. We've given you this discount, pay this amount into this. And they are very clever in how they do it. If we also refuse or decline to train our members, our staff, it could lead to that. Low identification of risk or poor control system to identify risk. There's the need for ease of access to IT systems. So much controls in place, so somebody is calling for relax the control so that we can easily access our IT systems. It is an indication of fraud. So like I said, someone wants the IT systems to be flexible. It is an indication of fraud. All right. Fraud prevention. It is the director's responsibilities to detect and prevent fraud, not the auditor. Fraud prevention must be an integral part of the business strategy. And to do this, directors must be aware of the risk and signs of fraud. So there should always be a strong internal control systems, very key. And an audit, internal audit function should also be to charge with the responsibility to detect fraud. So that is very key. Internal audit can help, but it is not their responsibility. It is the director. So whenever the external auditors come into audit, they give you a management representation letter to sign so that you can say that, yes, I am the one in charge of detecting and preventing fraud. Reasons why there could be poor internal controls: maybe employees could lack understanding of why the controls are needed. Employees could be poorly motivated. Okay, they are not paid well. We are understaffed, and there could also be changes in senior personnel. This could account for poor internal controls, all right? The question is, do you think the incidence of employee fraud would increase or decrease in the recession? Okay, what do you think? Okay, let's take a good look at it, all right? Steps in detecting and preventing fraud is not foolproof, but of course, to some extent. And there's a whole accreditation body, Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, who are into this. So they certify you as a fraud examiner. So look at some of the steps of detecting and preventing fraud. Internal controls, check it. Physical controls, put them in place. Segregation of duties, authorization policies, and you can see these are all items coming from the SOAP spam and the internal control, okay, activities. So authorization, customers should sign for their invoices, sign on their debit notes. We should use written numbers, okay? Separate documentations, don't clump them together. Sequentially pre-numbering invoices and then receipts for tracking and monitoring. And also let's date our documentations appropriately. Once again, there should be standard procedures. Take holidays. Employees should be asked to go on holidays, whether they like it or not. There should be some standard and strict recruitment policies. Staff should be given their laid down duties and responsibilities. And there should be some whistleblowing policy so that people could anonymously call these lines or send emails to report any indicators of fraud. We should have fraud officers. We should have fraud response plans. We should severely punish people who steal money. Strong sanctions, organizational policies. Okay. Money laundering is one key item where we've all been speaking against it in the world. It's a terrible activity used by organized crime and terrorist organizations to fund and fuel their evil activities, practices, let me put it that way. Any financial transaction whose purpose is to conceal the origin of the funds could lead to criminal activities. So currently what the banks do is that if you have a bank account which is dormant, it doesn't work, these criminals are very clever. They are able to detect which bank accounts are dormant and they could route money through that system. So you normally must keep your account active, at least. Put some coins or some pounds through. Okay, there are 3 categories of criminal offense in the UK. So for laundering, you get 14 years of imprisonment plus a fine. Failure to report, you get 5 years imprisonment plus a fine. And then when you tip off, you should be given 2 years imprisonment. All right. So these are just clear overview. These are just some quick and clear overviews of what fraud examination is, and then taking a deep look into money laundering. So fraud is real. Treat your employees well, motivate them, train them, put in strong internal controls. Management do not override these controls. And we can't get rid of fraud. We can't get rid of these money laundering and evil activities that people use to deprive others of their legitimate entitlements and causing companies to run down and then losing chunks and millions of pounds. Great. Thank you.